You are 12 years old. The ship they rowed you out to holds 821 men. You are climbing the side because the man above you is holding a rope, and you have not been told what the rope is for. You have come here to earn a wage and go home. This is the year 1805. And the thing almost nobody says out loud is this: the better you get at this, the less they will ever let you leave. By the time you are 28, if you live that long, one ear will be deaf. 3 of your teeth will be gone. You will have watched enough men die that you no longer flinch when the surgeon calls the next name. Level 1. The boy. The ship is bigger than the church in your village and holds more men than your village holds souls. The first time the great guns fire, the sound does not come to your ears. It comes up through the deck and into your teeth and out the top of your skull. And for an hour afterward, the whole world sounds like it is happening underwater. Beside you, an old man does not flinch. Past 50, an able seaman, missing 3 teeth on the left side. When the smoke clears, he turns his head so his good ear faces you, because the guns took the other one years ago, and he has learned to live pointed sideways at the world. Call him Ned. Your rank is boy, 3rd class. It is a real rating with real pay, about £7 a year, less than a grown man earns, and more than the nothing you had. Your work is to carry. In battle, you are a powder boy. You run cartridges of gunpowder from the magazine deep in the hold up to the guns, one at a time, cupped against your chest like something alive. You do it barefoot, because a single nail spark near the magazine would send the ship and every soul in her into the air in one white instant. You are chosen because you are small, quick, and too short for an enemy marksman to find. That is the first thing this Navy teaches you about your own body. Which parts of it are useful, and how? Level 2. The rope. You learn the ship the way you once learned your own street, by getting lost in it and cuffed for it. You begin as a landsman, the rawest rating there is, worth some 22 shillings a month, and every filthy job no one else will take. But you climb. A year on, if a bosun judges you can hand a sail, reef, and steer, you are rated ordinary seaman at 23 shillings and 6 pence a month. And the word ordinary has never once sounded so much like a promotion. And here's the part the stories leave out. It is good. You belong to a mess now. A knot of 6 or 8 men who eat from the same table, slung between the same 2 guns, and they become the nearest thing to a family you have at sea. The food is dull, but it is regular, which is more than the land ever promised you. And twice a day comes the thing the whole day arranges itself around, your grog. Half a pint of rum, cut with 4 parts water so you cannot hoard it, poured at noon and again in the evening. They test its strength by trying to set gunpowder alight with it. If the powder catches, the rum is proof. If it will not light, someone has watered your share, and there is very nearly a mutiny in it. This is the best life you have ever had, which is exactly the problem. Level 3. The rating. And here the stories get it wrong. You were most likely not dragged aboard in chains. On this ship, more men had volunteered than had been pressed. 289 to 217. And not one had been let out of a prison to serve. You came because the sea, for all of it, was the better bargain. That was the last free choice this Navy would let you make. 2 years in, you are rated able. Able seaman, the top of the lower deck. 29 shillings a month and a little more, and it means you can do anything the ship asks. You can knot a splice in the dark. You can lay out on a yard 100 feet up while she rolls beneath you. You can take the wheel in weather that would kill a landsman where he stood. You are, at last, worth something, and that is the trap. Set it down slowly, because it changes everything behind you. When you were a useless boy, the Navy could have let you walk and lost nothing at all. Now that you can do every one of those things, it will never let you go. The service is starved for skilled seamen, and it does not part with them. If you run, the muster book writes a single letter beside your name, R for run, and you forfeit every shilling of back pay, every share of prize money, everything you are owed. And if they take you, the punishment is not a fine. Desertion is the 16th of the Articles of War, and the 16th article ends at a rope. Ned has been aboard longer than you have been alive, and it strikes you now that you never once heard him speak of leaving. You had taken that for loyalty. You are only now learning it was arithmetic. Once a month, a lieutenant reads those articles aloud to the whole company, all of you at attention in the wind, because most of you cannot read them for yourselves. There are 57 of them. 7 end in death. You come to know the shape of the reading the way you know a hymn, and somewhere inside it, you finally understand the thing they are telling you. You do not belong to yourself anymore. You belong to her the way a plank belongs to the hull. They cannot pull you out without the ship taking water, and the only men who could sign your release are the same men who would hang you for signing your own. Every rung you climbed to reach this, you understand now, was a rope, and you tied every one of them yourself. Level 4. The guns. The 21st of October, 1805. Cape Trafalgar, off the coast of Spain. 33 French and Spanish ships wait in a long curved line, and your fleet of 27 is sailing straight into the middle of it, bows on, taking fire it cannot yet return. At 1:45 a string of flags climbs your own mast, and the men who can read them pass the words down the deck. England expects that every man will do his duty. A cheer runs along the guns. You cheer too, and the boy who runs powder to your gun cheers because you are cheering. He is 12. He does not know why. The way you did not know why, once. You are not the boy who came aboard. That boy ran powder barefoot. The man at the gun now is an able seaman with rope-scarred hands, and this is the rank the whole long climb was for. You serve a 32-pounder, 3 tons of iron that takes 14 men to work, and Ned is your gun captain. The noise you first felt in your teeth as a child is now the entire world. Gun after gun after gun. And the great killer of the day is not the round shot. It is the wood. A cannonball through the ship's side kills fewer men than the storm of oak splinters it throws, each one a flying spear. You have done this drill 1,000 times. Load, run out, fire, sponge, and again until your hands do it without asking you. Ned cannot hear the guns and has not for years, so he reads the deck by its shutter and reads you by your face. And the two of you have a whole language of nods that needs no sound at all. Through the smoke, you see it before he does. A gun on the enemy deck swinging toward the port beside you. You shout his name. He cannot hear it. But he sees your mouth make the shape of it, and he does the thing he has done for 30 years. He turns his good ear toward you, toward the sound he wants to catch. The splinter takes him where he turned. He is on the deck, and then he is still, and the gun still needs serving, so you serve it. There is no moment to give him. The Navy did not build one into the day. Ned was one of thousands like him, and the records kept almost none of their names. If he stayed with you, leave him one in the comments. Level 5. The Cockpit. When it ends, your ship has lost 57 men killed and 102 wounded, and you are neither, which is its own strange weight to carry up into the light. The wounded go down to the cockpit below the waterline. There the surgeon works by lantern in a space already slick, an Ulsterman named Beatty. Of the 102 men he treats that day, 96 will live. He takes off 11 limbs and saves 9 of those men. These are remarkable numbers for the age, and you will turn that phrase over for the rest of your life. Good numbers. Somewhere above you in the same dark, the admiral whose signal you cheered is dying, shot down from the rigging by a marksman in the tops. The fleet that won will spend 2 months limping home. You keep your arms and your legs. What you do not keep is your hearing. Level 6. Finale. The guns are quiet now. Somewhere in the years since Ned went down, you began to turn your head, so your good ear faces whoever is speaking. You never decided to. The world comes to you underwater again, the way it did the very first day. Except now, it never clears. You have become the old man from your first morning aboard. It only took the years. You will not grow rich for any of it either. Prize money for a captured ship is split into eighths, and the great shares climb upward to the captain, to the admiral, while the whole body of common seamen divides the bottom quarter among hundreds. Your share of a fortune is a few shillings. Your back pay, when it comes late, and some of it simply never comes. If this one stayed with you, subscribe, leave a like. There is more of this coming. Here is the part that should keep you up tonight. None of this was the accident of one cruel century. It was a system, and it worked, and it outlasted very nearly everyone who was ground up inside it. The wooden world is a museum now, but the half pint of rum they poured you at noon was still being poured every single day to sailors of that same navy until one ordinary summer noon in 1970. And somewhere, always, a boat is being rowed out to a ship too large to believe. In it is a boy, 12 years old, barefoot, who cannot hear the guns yet. Give him a few years.